So, hi everyone, and welcome. Yes, all right. So, hi and welcome, and thank you for joining me today as I talk with Dr. Andre Morgan, or I can just call you Andre, right?
Sure. Yes.
Purpose of the interview, I will just call you Andre. But he will be talking with us about 5 tips to match into residency as an international medical graduate. Personally, I find Andre's story and his path extremely inspirational. It's a story of great determination, but of course, I'll allow him to tell it for himself. If you don't know me, I'm Shawna-Kaye Lester. I'm founder of Memorable Essay, University Admission Consulting, and Career Consulting. And I work with people who are applying to college, to graduate school, and to jobs to help them to stand out and to get their dream opportunities. I specialize in working with people in the medical track for several reasons. There's a backstory to that. And so with individuals like Andre, a few months ago, a year ago, doing their best to match into residency just to make the process less stressful and to help you get to match much easier. So Andre, could you share with us, international medical graduate can mean a lot to different people, but how are you an IMG, or how did you come to be an IMG?
All right. So I'm a graduate from the University of West Indies, the Mona campus in Jamaica. And by extension, once I have not been practicing or doing medical school in the US, I'm technically an international medical grad because I'm trained outside of the US. So for me, in terms of the tips, I would say the first.
And going into the residency application, because I was trying to make it a bit more paced to get us to understand a bit about you and your particular journey.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. So you studied at the University of the West Indies in Mona, and you deciding to pursue your residency overseas. What were some of the first steps that you took to do that?
Oh, well, the first step I think is learning about what USMLE is and about what training would be like in the US, and if that is something that you wanted to do. So that was something for me because I was actually specializing already in Jamaica. So it was a hard decision, but one that I eventually made in terms of deciding to go to the US to do postgraduate training.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All right. So just to start to figure out what the process entails and
right.
Actually a match for you.
Right.
Not an easy road. All right. And so you focused on hematology, oncology, and what was it specifically in that field that you felt, I think this is the kind of training that I want to get elsewhere?
Right. So the hematology oncology system and even the program and just the practice in Jamaica, for me, it was a little bit heartbreaking, right? It's hematology is an oncology, especially oncology, it's new. There are a lot of new treatment and it's pretty expensive, especially when you talk about a conversion rate. So for many patients, the mortality was beyond what I personally could really tolerate, right? Because it's really, really, really difficult for patients. And you'd read a lot about the textbook and standard of care, and you would be offering something that was standard of care in the 1990s or 1980s. And that's just on the mere fact that just patients just cannot afford it. They just, if one treatment will cost you 10 million Jamaican dollars and it will extend your life by 2 months, then most patients would be like, well, that's just not worth it. So I wanted to be somewhere where I could be offering standard of care. Whatever is current, whatever is new, innovative, I wanted to be a part of that. So that's why I embarked on leaving and coming to the US.
Okay. And a lot of people do say that. They will explain that, it's not a matter of not loving your country or not wanting to contribute to national development, but in a field like medicine, especially for those of you who end up focusing on some research in addition to your clinical practice, it's really important to be around the latest technologies and the latest knowledge, really, to be of the best service possible to your patient.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I'm very patriotic. I mean, I love Jamaica, and sometimes people look on it that way sometimes, but then I think sometimes when you go away and you practice, then you will in the long term do more for your country because then you would practice, you'd make affiliations and associations with people. And then if you decide to go back home, then you're taking a wealth of experience and you know exactly what you are to do. You know the standard of practice, and then you can increase or up the standard of practice in your own country, right? Sometimes even overseas colleagues, they take friends home to practice. Visit, they may come and visit, do surgeries and so forth. So I think it's a win-win for everybody in that sense.
Okay. All right. So we can start with the tips. So having gone through the match, if you could share with us what are some of the tips that you think people applying from outside of the US to US residency should focus on. I've seen your list, but want you to kind of just walk us through it.
Right. So, I look back on the list I sent you about the 5 tips, and I mean the first thing I'd say is the process is different for everyone, and these are just my 5 tips that I think were like key having looked back. So the first thing I would say, and I sort of put this at the top, and I'll go through the list as you go through the match process, right? I think the first thing is making up your mind, right? And I mean, that sounds, but it's important that you make up your mind because it is a long commitment, right? And you have to be in it for the long haul. So the first thing is making up your mind. It's gonna be very hard emotionally. It's gonna be very hard in terms of time, and financially, it's gonna be very hard. Now, okay, the process may run you a few thousand US dollars. I'm not saying you need to have all of that up front, but you've made up your mind. So come what may, whatever you need to do, you'll get it done, right? And I say that because I have friends or I know persons, I met people who see me studying and they're like, oh, I'm studying for that. And it's been 5 years. I kid you not, 7 years, right? And then they'll give up. So that's very important. Make up your mind. Uh, the second thing is your step one score. Your step one score is hugely important. I cannot stress the importance of it. And as an IMG, sometimes we are not clear why. The main reason is because you are competing against American grads. American grads enter the match in their final year of medical school, which means that they would only have done step one most of the times. So as a program director, the key thing you're looking at is step one, because step one is the basis on which you can compare all grads, right? So step one is very, very important. The average score, I worked at a US medical school as a teaching fellow for about 3 years, and the average step one score there as an offshore medical school is 230. Currently, this is 2017, right? So you as an IMG, you're looking to beat that average and you need to beat it by at least, I would say, tenfold. And there are a lot of NBMEs and UL simulations that are very good at predicting your score. So if you do that and it's predicting your score, a very low score, then I would say, and this is my own thing, delay your exam. Because that score stays with you for life, right? Delaying may put you 1 year later, but it's better sometimes that you delay than you have a score. That's very hard to compete. Competitively, it's like weak, right?
And it's the number
No,
one factor objectively when you look at the match reports that the program directors are looking at. So
definitely, definitely. Now, if you've done your step one and your score isn't great, and personally, my step one score wasn't great, so I think I have all leverage to speak on this, then all is not lost. But I'm just saying that if you haven't started, then step one. If you've done step one and your score isn't great, then you need to maximize on your step two. Then you can say you're an overcomer. Oh, something was wrong, you were sick on the day, you had an issue, but your step two grade is great. And your step three grade is great, right? So grades are important. Uh, the next thing I would say is, and this is point number 3, is get all the help you can when it comes down to applications. Apply to all the schools that are familiar with graduates from your school. Any friend you have in residency, you need to meet out with them, right? Any grad from your school in residency, you need to meet with them, right? Because most of the time, people say in the US, it's all objective. The truth is, yes, it's objective, but there is still that personal relationship thing where if someone says, hey, Andre is a good candidate, at least interview him, then chances are they'll interview the person, right? Even if you don't meet the school requirements.
And for people who are in different locations, just to clarify that by meeting up with them, you mean even pinging them on Facebook or LinkedIn?
Right. So Facebook, during that time, Facebook was my best friend, right? I was searching through Facebook for graduates from my school and residency program abroad. Whatever LinkedIn, whatever it is that people use now, find them. Because when you are here, if someone reaches out to me from my school, chances are, even if I don't know you, I'll help you out because I understand that the process is very difficult to get in, right? And one key thing I want to make notice, if you're trying to see one of the best dermatologists in the world, you know who controls seeing that person? The secretary, right? So program coordinators, not necessarily directors, no, because they're usually very busy. Program coordinators, they're like the secretaries for those persons are very important. Have a good relationship with them and have your friends talk to these persons and not only the program directors. Okay. All right. Uh, the fourth thing is make sure your CV is perfect, right? It's perfect. Now, Sean, I'm sure can speak a lot on some aspects of your CV being perfect, which consists of your personal statement, uh, your background, all your experience, and so forth.
When you say the personal statement, what do you mean? Like the objective at the top of the CV?
No, so the CV, which is the curriculum vitae, it will have your personal statement. So that's where you just talk about yourself and what your goals are, right? But then there are many other aspects that are included. So you will have to include like your board certification exams, so ACLS, BLS. You'd also talk about your experience. Now, most IMGs will follow the British system. So you would have done internship, you might have done some house officer, or you may even be doing residency in your country. It's important that your strong point comes out in your CV. Whatever you've done, you need to talk about it. And not just casually mention it, you need to talk about it. In medicine, we say document. Well, for your curriculum vitae, it's important. If you are doing surgery and you know how to do appendectomies and you know how to put in chest tubes, you need to write those things in, right? If you're doing family medicine, whatever experience, you need to write those things in. And also, American English. Now that sounds weird, but the Americans have their way how they spell and they do things. Then your CV need to comply, whether or not you're British or wherever you are. So you need to spell check American. Everything needs to be like that, and that's what I mean by perfect. Because no one wants to read through a CV and see grammatical errors and that sort of thing. So that's very important. And I cannot stress that your personal statement is a big deal. Sometimes this is the only way people meet you, and just by reading your personal statement, then they may just deny your application. So you need to make sure you go through and have your friends, journalists, any English major you know, or even a paid program where someone will read through your personal statement and help you. I didn't do this with you, Shauna, but I know you offer this service. And I mean, the name of your service is Memorable Essay, and that's exactly what you want your personal statement to be: memorable. When someone reads this, they need to forget about your grades if your grades are bad, or if your grades are good. It must have that wow factor where they're like, okay, I definitely need to meet this candidate 100%.
And one of the important things for me about the personal statement, because Andre and I met when it came around to interview prep, but a lot of people, I think, overlook. So they're overlooking how important the personal statement is as the only thing for many people that they can really control at the time of application. Because what the people in your program think about you and the scores that you've gotten, those are all in the past.
Right.
Statement, you can handle it in the present, but you can also set the tone for the interview. And so many people I find will just, write what they think the program directors want to hear or what the selection committee wants to hear, not thinking that everyone else is doing that and not realizing that I can actually plant seeds, like 1, 2, 3 seeds of what I want discussed and focused on in my interview if I do this statement right. So I encourage people to think of the statement. Yes, you want it to be memorable, and you also want to secure the interview, but you want to plant the seeds to have the kind of discussions that you want.
Exactly. Because one thing that someone said to me in the interview was that, hey, Andre, as a program director, I read hundreds and thousands of personal statements every year. And if I'm doing this for 5 years, that's a lot of personal statements. So this is something important. Most of the time, whatever you can think about, someone has written about it already, right? So the usual stories about someone sick and your first patient and that usual jazz, that's what everyone is writing, right? Hundreds of thousands of persons who apply every year. So it's important that you stand out and that your personal statement is personal. It's about you, as Shawna just said, planting seed, right? So someone is like, oh, I need to meet this candidate, right?
I want to know more.
Yeah. The fifth, and I did say 5, but I'll give you a bonus. But the fifth one is, know that you've gotten your interview. And sometimes even before getting interview, it's important that you practice. Now, for me, and I mean practice for your interviews, right? It's so important to practice. You should be intoxicated, asleep, or just randomly walking through the day and I stop you and I say, hey, tell me about yourself. Or, hey, what are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? These things need to come out automatically, right? So I do interviews, I think, generally I do interviews pretty well, right? I've not really had a problem. Most people in medicine don't do a lot of interviews, so this isn't our strong point, right? But I made sure I had some lawyer friends I practiced with, some journalists, I had some retired program directors who are friends I practiced with, residents who are here now in the US that I practiced with. And even then, I did not feel 100%. And that's when I reached out to Shawna, because I just felt like I needed to be perfect because this was my final time going at the match and I needed to be perfect. And that's when I reached out to Shawna. And it wasn't about going over questions and answer. I think the key thing for me, and Shawna alluded to this already, was planting seed. Answering questions in a way that was different from how everyone else would answer. Okay, tell me about yourself. Oh, well, I'm a patient, hardworking guy, and yeah, nah, telling a story, right? Just planting that seed. Let the person infer from what you've said. And I thought that was so important. And I know Shawna can say a lot.
I can talk for 10 hours about it, so I won't.
Okay, but that is very important, because on the day when you are well prepared, you exude confidence, right? There's this like pep in your step. There's something when you say good morning to someone, like it shows, and that sells, right? That sells, especially in the US. That's what people like. People want to see someone confident. And generally, as an international grad, when you compare yourself to American, just culturally, we are not very outspoken and we don't like to be there and sometimes like vocal. And that's important here. Here, it's very important, and you can't get timid, then you get lost in the crowd. And So you need to be there, bright, radiant. And when you leave, there's a mark. So in the end, when they're going through all the candidates at the end, then when your name comes up, they'll be like, oh, that was that really perky guy who told us all these amazing stories. And in essence, you are memorable. And that's really how you get a match. Not always there's some bonus. So 6 is bonus, and these are some of the things people generally ask about observerships and publications and so forth. The answer is, I don't think it can hurt, right? So if you're in a position to get observerships, get them. If you're in a position to get externships, get them. Publish. Those things are very important too. They're not the be all end all. Some persons, it became a focal point, a discussion, and that's how they got the edge in. For other persons, it didn't even come up, right? So that's it. That can be important. I personally decided that my resume, my CV needed to be flawless. So I did observerships, I did externships, and I published. I just did one publication, but at least I published. So I could put a tick in everything. So even though my weak point was my grades, everything else was flawless. And I believe that's how I was able to match.
Okay, great. All right. Well, thank you for sharing all of those. And you did, I feel like in your own way, you had your own, I'm not putting you on the spot, but I feel as if you had your own sort of externship in terms of your experience as a fellow. All of those things become so
Right,
and
right.
if they can't do any rotations, if they can't do those rotations while they're in medical school, or they can't get them in during the summers, it's still important to know that you did have some experience in the US system, having been a fellow, a teaching fellow.
Yeah, right, right. And Shawna, as a IMG, your it's important that you know what your advantage is, and your advantage will always be clinical experience. You may have other advantages for you, but your clinical experience would be a huge advantage. So it's important that you always highlight that, because you'll always stand out against an American grad because they can't practice without going to residency, but you would have had the opportunity to do that. So you need to highlight that, because sometimes your grades may not be parallel, and then your medical system people don't really know about. They're sure about the American system, but they're not sure about yours. So your clinical experience is important. So you need to make sure that that comes out in your interview, on your CV, and so forth.
Yeah, basically you're ready to work, which is what I oftentimes remind people, especially people who, I mean, the ones who are applying to fellowship, but even individuals who are applying to residency. It's like you're applying to a job, and
Right.
show that you're job ready. So sort of these CVs that are, you want to showcase your grades, but you want to say more than did the usual task, because that's something that surprisingly people write a lot. So they will write, like they were working on whichever floor and they go did the usual task. And it's just like, well, what usual task? I need to have an idea of the specific task that you're able to accomplish and the results that you're able to get. So when I know about the results that you can get, I know if I want you in my job, because residency is a job. So
Exactly.
you have to look at it like that. And you do have the upper hand as an IMG in terms of who has job experience in that sense.
Right. Right.
Patients, you've handled floors, you know what you're talking about.
Right. And most of the times the schools that will send you interviews, most of the time, will be schools that expect you to come and work. New York is very IMG friendly, and that's for a reason. When you go to New York, you're expected to work, and they have the population and they have the patients, so you're expected to work. A lot of these IMG schools, they're taking you because come July the 1st, they feel a little bit safer having you on the floor, sometimes as compared to a American grad. So that's really important.
All right. And so the hard part, I want to talk with you about people who might have to do this process more than once. What does it take to bounce back, to not just look at that note and throw in the towel and be like, this is not.
So my first point, and that question takes me to the first thing I said. The first thing I said was being prepared mentally. And why I say that is sometimes people think mental preparation, oh, I'm about to do this. You know, what happens when you don't match in your first year? What do you do? Your mental preparedness comes with that in mind. What happens if you don't match in your second year? No, I'm okay with saying that I matched my third time. And I said, okay, this was my third and final time. Right? After the first time, he said, okay, you go again. The second time is usually when you are not done. But the truth is, if you really want this, and if you are bent on why you wanted to come here and what you hope to achieve by coming here, then you can get up and go again. The best advice I got after not matching the second time was from a resident who was here. And she said to me, she said, Andre, you know who are the persons who don't match? The persons who stop trying. And I thought that was simple, but yet so profound, right? And I held that because I said, "Oh," so she's like, "I know you said you won't try, you'll stop after your third time, but I'm just gonna say that to you." No, it comes a point you have to weigh and decide. Okay, this is it. But if you hold that, then I think you can do it. Like just keep going, just keep going.
And I think in my experience, it also depends on the reasons you're not matching. So oftentimes I will meet people who it's sort of, and I can relate because it's sort of the way I went to college when I decided to do college in the US. Someone just said, this might be a good idea. And you thought, oh,
Right.
this might be a good idea. And you start exploring. But there's so many components to it that are actually quite unusual, or they're outside of what you're used to in terms of the standardized testing, or how do you package yourself to make sure that this package is flawless and it's saying the best thing about me. So once I was actually talking with someone and I was like, oh, you know what's going on here? And the person said, well, the truth is that I just saw people doing this process and I thought maybe I should check it out. But there was no way to backtrack. And then, you know, the way you would plan for something, the way you would have a strategy.
Right.
And
Right.
Just didn't have that because it had not been on the person's radar for 4 or for 5 years. So you have to figure out the reason or the things, the different things, the parts of the application that are not working for you. Is it the step scores? Is it what your recommenders are writing about you? Is it your performance evaluations? Is it how you're writing about yourself in your personal statement or in the CV? And to work on fixing those parts. I like that you said to wait. If you think you're not going to score high, wait. Just there's no need to rush it. In the grand scheme of things, it's fine to wait a year and actually and bring the best application possible rather than to have a weaker application and to spend years trying to recover from that. So just take your time to fix the different parts of the application and then go when you know you're strong and when you're ready.
Right. I mean, as an IMG, I know persons who are listening to this, there's a time factor. A lot of schools will say, okay, I don't take grads after 2 years, after 5 years, and so forth. The truth is, I got interviews from schools and I was beyond. I'm 8 years out of medical school. And schools interviewed me and I was far outside of their timeline. So don't worry too much about the timeline. It's important, but don't worry too much. You need one interview technically to match, right? But they say, insanity started doing the same thing over and over and over, expecting a different result, right? So if you don't match the first time, then I was trying to say you must get to the drawing board and think, okay, why didn't I match? What are the things? What can I change? And every time you keep changing. When I didn't match the second time, like the moment I didn't match, I was heartbroken and I took some time and composed myself, and then I started writing. What am I going to do new this year? And I renewed all my letters of recommendation. I went and I got hands-on clinical experience. Marky, I had to pay. And I just decided, okay, what new am I going to do? So every time there must be something that you've improved on, because the results may just be the same. In the end, if you put your best self forward and then it doesn't happen, then, that's something you deal with. But you must put your best self forward. Best. And I think most times if we put our best self forward, then we'll get what we really want.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think even our best selves can get better, if you meet someone who can show you how. Because you don't know what you don't know. That's half of when you're doing things. If you're relating to people who are like, oh yeah, this is how you fix it and it's great. You don't know. So you think you're at your best, but you're actually not.
Right.
Okay, so thank you, Andre. But to wrap up, I want to share now that you're in residency. You haven't said where, so I don't know if I can say where. So
okay, sure.
now you can tell us just a little bit about your residency, and please tell me the best part about residency that made this journey worthwhile.
So far, I'm 2 months into residency now. This is my second month, and I'm at Howard University. Overall, it has been, I know, because I really, really wanted to go to Howard University from the onset. Shawna knows this, so that's why she's trying so much. I've had my mindset on Howard. My best friend, mentor, went to Howard and so forth. So that's another story. The best part so far here, honestly, is that I don't do a lot of scuff work. My job is to think, and that's what I love, because that's what I always wanted. My job is to think, and I think and I make plans, and then they're executed. And that is just like a wow phenomenon for me. And it sounds simple, and I'm sure some IMGs can relate. Putting in an IV access and doing some of these things. No, there's someone who does that. My job is to sit and think and look at all the parameters for the patient and see how I can get this patient better. And that's what I really love here. To everything, there's a downside, of course. It's a lot of work. While here, you may not see sometimes a volume that you'll see in your home country. And my friends did tell me about this. It can really get tiring. Like just seeing a few patients, it can really take a lot of time. But it's an awesome experience so far. And of course, I must add this, the ACGME rules governing work time, that's a huge thing here. So while you may sort of feel tired, I think it's set up to prevent burnout. So now every time I get really tired, okay, I know my day off also is coming, so I can just rest and relax. And of course, today is my day off. So I'm just home, just chilling and just relaxing. So that's important.
Yeah, and of course, all of those tasks are important, what you mentioned, but you do know that if we're being honest, people who train for a long time to do things, you're training for a long time because you want to think and you want to problem solve, and
right.
do the tasks as they're needed, but you do want to kind of be more in a strategist position and the solver. So
Right. When you're able to focus like purely on the patient and on the pathology and what's happening, then sometimes the outcome is better as compared to you're focusing on that, but then you have so many other things to do, right? And as human beings, our attention span is so much, right? So and that's really, really what I'm loving here so far.
Okay, focusing on your zone of genius. Yes. All right, Andre. Well, thank you so much for sharing with us today your 5 tips to match into residency as an IMG, with some extra inspiration for people who are doing it, because they know that the only way that they won't match is if they stop applying to the match. Yes. And I know that you are already a doctor, but I'm sure as you get more exposed and more specialized, I start to wish there wouldn't be a lot of wonderful work for you to do in hematology oncology, but there will be, there will be need for the work. And so I know you're going to do an excellent job. So I'm really happy for you, actually. I'm quite happy
that you. No, seriously, thank you. Sometimes when people use paid services, I have to just put this out there. No. It feels very distant. But for me, like Shauna can say, hey, Andre, can you just come on and just give me some tips for future clients and persons I'll work with? And it's no problem because from day one, we sort of just clicked and we connected. And I felt like that was important. Like someone understood me and could guide me where I wanted to go, not to where they sort of want to go. And that's the good thing about memorable essay. Like you work with me and with exactly what I want, and you sort of become me for a second there and just help plot my way. So thank you so much, and for believing in me and saying, no. We'll interview for your first choice because that's where you're gonna go and that's where you wanna go. And that vote of confidence, I think, is important for someone who's working with you. So great job on your part.
All right, and
All right, thank you.
all right. So continue to enjoy residency, and we'll keep track on your progress. And if you found this useful, do feel free to let us know and to let Andre know.
Okay. All right. Take care.
Let him know. Let us know. All right. Thanks, Andre.
All right. Thank you. Good luck, guys.
Yes, you'll need it. All right. Bye.
All right. Bye.